I think the most important thing is it's his decision. I mean, he's going to talk to all the doctors, he's going to collect all the information, but I just hope that he doesn't feel like if he doesn't play, then he's letting everybody down. He needs to make this decision with a clear mind based on what is best for me and my family and my future.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Wisdom Wednesday, presented, of course, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. You know that. We're getting the wisdom today from a buddy of mine, Ryan Fitzpatrick. You might have heard of him. Fitzmagic does a terrific job for Amazon. He will join us momentarily. Always love to pick his brain about quarterbacks in particular. He is fantastic. Also, a bunch of trades yesterday, including a couple of big ones that we need to talk about for sure. Ryan is presented, of course, former Bill like me, by Labatt Blue Light. Drink Labatt Blue Lights with me, with Ryan Fitzmagic, with your friends, family. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Always good to be joined by my Ivy League brother, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Just got a new 3-year extension, or at least I just saw it on social media. Got a new 3-year extension to be one of the analysts, pregame, halftime, postgame, Thursday night on Amazon Prime. You must be liking it if you sign up for 3 more years, man.
I do. I love it. And it's funny. The contract happened a while ago, but I was just on a podcast and blurted something out, and that's why it became news. But interestingly enough, people used to make fun of me in my playing career for backup, go in, play great, suck, get released, go somewhere else, and the cycle started going again. I signed this new deal, it gets announced, and I lose my voice on Thursday night. So I go adversity and I deal with it through the pregame show, and at halftime, I can't talk, and I'm not able to do the postgame show. So voice is coming back right now, but hopefully we don't have a repeat of that.
2 thoughts on that. One is, I should have told you, since you haven't been in the media that long, you can only have like 2 beers the night before the game. You can't go like 10 to 20 deep. Like night before the game, just 2, because you can't take the chance of losing your voice.
Yeah, this was like one of the first. We were in Seattle, and it was one of the we went to bed at 9 p.m., which never happens. So it was like that was the one thing I couldn't blame it on this time. But thank you. Any tips that you have? I am new at this, so you keep sending them my way, Ross.
So you know what's crazy about that? I'll tell this quickly because people are more interested in what you have to say, and I probably told the story before. I love Doug Peterson, the Jaguars head coach, and here's why. First time I got the Eagles preseason gig was 2019. Kind of like a dream gig for me. Grew up outside of Philly, Eagles fan, used to watch them on preseason. So I'm excited for it. Day before production meetings, I'm like struggling. I'm like, okay, I'll be fine by tomorrow night, whatever. So I'm just drinking all that, like, what do they call it? Medicine ball at Starbucks. I'm not talking to anybody, nothing. Driving to the stadium. I pull over to get a medicine ball. When I go to order it, dude, there's nothing. There's nothing there. And I call the producer. I'm like, I really can't talk. And like, I think on some level, I mean, I hadn't proven myself to them yet. I don't know if they thought I was like choking or like I can't talk. So I get there, and I don't know what happened on 2 levels, but on 1 level, I think they tell Peterson. My first obligation is a pregame interview. They tell Peterson, and I'm supposed to do 3 questions. I barely get a question out, and he goes for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I get a second one out. He goes for like 2 minutes, and then that was it. And afterwards, like, we smiled at each other. I saw him the next week. I gave him a hug, dude. Like, he knew I was struggling. He knew I was in a bad way. And so he was trying to help me out. So I'm like a Doug Peterson guy forever. Interestingly enough, by the way, my voice somehow got better. In the second half, it was better than the first half. I don't know what that dynamic is, but That was crazy. So what do you love about it so much?
One of the things I think that's different with us, and instead of being on one of the other an analyst for another show, is we're on site, and I think that's a huge part of it. I love the group I work with, and so getting together for dinner on Wednesdays, spending the days together on Thursday. Last week walking around Seattle, each week kind of brings a new thing, and then getting to be on the field before the game, talking to players, talking to coaches, training staff, equipment guys, all that stuff makes a really big difference in terms of some of the analysis that I'm going to be able to provide and the insights. And then just the atmosphere of being at these games. I think that's a really big part of it. And, being done with playing football and it being just a hard stop. I know a lot of people really struggle with that. And I was lucky enough to be able to go right into this, as were Andrew Whitworth and Richard Sherman with me. And all three of us, with the relationships that we have, getting to get into the city, onto the field before the game, that stuff is really important to us.
It's awesome. Awesome. Speaking of some of the teams you used to play for, I've got questions, I think, for a bunch of them. I want to start with on Monday, Mike McDaniel said that Tua is going to play again this year. And obviously, you were teammates with Tua after the tank for Tua year, which you ruined, but then I guess you didn't ruin it because they were still able to get him. That you're the worst quarterback ever to sign if you're trying to tank. I mean, the worst ever. All right, so maybe you have talked to him, and if you have, you don't need to tell me. But you're out of it now. You've been out of it for a couple years. You know that there's life after football. What would you be thinking? Any idea what you think you'd be doing if you were Tua in this situation?
Well, I'll just add to that setup there. Ironically, two of the more visible games that he got concussions in. One was the Thursday night versus the Bengals a few years ago, which was our game. And that was kind of a welcome to TV moment for me, where I had to then, watch him kind of go out of the stadium in a stretcher and then talk about it at halftime. And I was like, okay, that's new to me. And then this last year versus Buffalo, same thing. He goes down. I think the most important thing is it's his decision. I mean, he's going to talk to all the doctors. He's going to collect all the information. But, right when that happened, there was so much talk about, hey, if I was him, I would retire. I'd never play again. But just as well as I do, like this also is like something that we've all strived for in our lives. Like he's the ultimate competitor. He loves playing football. He loves his team. I just hope that he doesn't feel like if he doesn't play, then he's letting everybody down. He needs to make this decision with a clear mind based on what is best for me and my family and my future. And that being said, like he loves playing the game of football. So I don't think it's right for us to try to make this decision for him and to take that away from him.
I think you make really good points. Really good points. And I forgot that you were there both of those times to sort of witness that in person. And what makes it even more different is I was at the Thursday night game this year in against Buffalo when it happened, but you have a relationship with the guy. I mean, you were teammates with him. Like, I don't know if you guys are friendly or if you talk a decent amount or what, but you were teammates with him. You had a relationship with him, and to see him twice in person have that fencing posture, that's when it really I feel like for all of us gets scary.
Yeah, for sure. And I think again, I go through kind of my own playing experiences and all the things that I saw and all the things that I had to deal with. And that was luckily one of the things I never had to deal with. Saw plenty of concussions, saw guys, end their careers. I saw guys that continued to play and it didn't have an effect on their careers going on. But again, like, Tua loves the game of football. So it's up to him. If he wants to keep playing, obviously those guys are going to be happy to have him back.
I always tell people, and I mean this sincerely, football was like my first love. Still is. You know what I mean? Like, and when I was done, it on some level it was like losing a first love, but being able to do all these other things that we do, it's not the same as playing. but it's almost like you can still hang out with your first love. You can't like date them anymore or be with them, but you can still, still see them every once in a while, still give you enough that you don't feel like you've totally got like the guys Fitz that go totally cold turkey. I think about that sometimes like, man, what would that be like? I really have no idea. Like, let's say you and I did what everybody else we know does, like the hedge fund thing or private equity or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated if I had gone that route to know like how much football would I watch? Like on Twitter, would I follow Ryan Fitzpatrick or like football people and follow on them? Or would I just be like totally out of it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much of our identity, even for guys that don't play in the NFL, guys that play, in college, and even the guys that don't get to play past college. You spend so much time doing it and loving it and competing in it that it's such, for me at least, like it is such a huge part of who I am. It's a huge part of who my friends were in college. It's a huge part of, the way that I coach my kids, the way that I live my daily life. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was that routine being gone and out, and the fellowship, the constant fellowship being gone and out. This new, using the Amazon as a conduit to basically to have that, to replicate that a little bit and to stay a part of the game has been really healthy for me and really good in my post-playing career.
Um, Drake May started his first game on Sunday for the Patriots, did some positive things. I'm curious, do you have a rookie quarterback philosophy? Is there such a thing as a rookie quarterback philosophy in terms of play the guy right away? He should sit as long as possible, somewhere in between. People had been begging for May to play. They kept saying the O line's not good enough or whatever. And by the way, the O line's still not good enough, but they put him in there now and he did some positive things. Do you have a philosophy or is it a guy to guy thing? I'm just kind of curious about young quarterbacks, probably rookies in particular, and when they should be put out there.
Yeah, I think even more than a guy to guy thing, it's a team to team thing. What is the infrastructure of that team? And I think one of the things that makes it really simple to look at, if you just look at three categories of how a team is performing throughout the year, um, if you look at their defense, it's nice as a young quarterback to come in and have a good defense. So how many points per game is that team giving up? Okay, let's check that out and see where they rank on the list. How many yards are they rushing for? Again, something infrastructure, something that takes a little bit off of that rookie quarterback. And then the third thing just being takeaways that are produced by the defense. And so you look at all these different situations. Um, Caleb Williams is in a great situation. That defense is playing great. They're taking the ball away. And all of a sudden, these last three games, what have you seen? DeAndre Swift, whether it's running or in the screen game. Now, Drake May, not a great situation. New England just unfortunately isn't a very talented team. That being said, he threw three touchdowns, so that's a huge positive. He hit the deep ball at the end of the first half. He had a great touchdown in the second half over the middle that was right in stride to Pop Douglas. There were a lot of struggles. There were a lot of rookie things that you saw out there, some inaccuracy. He had a false start, which is hopefully that doesn't happen again in his career under center,
I didn't
popping out
see
of there
that.
for
Did he
snap.
really?
Yeah, he did. But those things, on top of having to learn your own offense and remember who's motioning and what the snap count is and all those things, which is hard to do, especially when you get into a real game. All those other parts of infrastructure and being a good football team come into play. But I think he should be out there right now. I'm happy to see Drake May out there. I love Jacoby Brissett. I love the way he deals with adversity. I love the professional that he is, but he's going to be a good mentor to Drake in that situation. And the other thing being play caller, Drake's got a guy in Alex Van Pelt that's played in the league for a long time, so he understands what he's going through. So that definitely leads into if it's a good situation or not.
Speaking of situations, I think about you sometimes when I say this next thing because I wrote an article about it for the 33rd team a couple weeks ago. Because I was a journeyman, right? I root for a guy, and he was the third overall pick in the draft, so it's a little bit different, right? But Sam Darnold, he's basically been told by multiple teams, you can't do it, you're not good enough, move on, move along, and maybe rightfully so, right? With the Jets and with Carolina. But I guess a guy like me, I always thought, I wonder what it could have been like if I had just been in the right with the right team and the right coach and put at the right spot. Like I think I could have been a starting center for a long time. I think I could have done this for a long time. I always wonder that. So I'm kind of rooting for Sam Darnold. And as a guy that is well known as probably one of those well known journeymen ever, did you ever feel that way? Maybe you still feel that way, that like if you had really gone somewhere with a great infrastructure and a really good coaching staff and a pretty decently long leash to let you like that, maybe you could have done, and you did different stints, but maybe you could have been even more than what your incredible career already was.
I mean, I got to the point in my career where I actually really enjoyed bouncing around from place to place and going to, Miami's a great example of this, where I go to a place where, you mentioned and we joke about tank for Tua, but at the beginning of that, my first season in Miami when Brian Flores was the head coach, I mean, I was introducing myself to people in the huddle during the first game, and so I actually, by the end of my career, in a sick and twisted way, really enjoyed being in those situations where it took a ton of leadership. It took a guy that had dealt with a ton of adversity to even just go out there and field a competitive team, and try to get the best in these people that were misfit toys, or guys that had been discarded, or guys that maybe didn't live up to what they should have been, like a Devontae Parker in Miami, or Mike Gesicki and what he was able to do. But I actually really enjoyed that part of it. So it might have been just, those first 7, 8, 9 years of my career having to move around and deal with it, but getting over that and enjoying going to different places and trying to get the best out of people.
That said, do you find yourself rooting for guys who are doing well in a second, third spot, whether it is a Darnold or a Baker Mayfield or someone that is showing, that overcomes the adversity and shows that in a better situation, perhaps, or maybe they just got better. You know what I mean? Maybe they got better too. You're allowed to get better as a player too. Do you enjoy watching those guys have success?
Love. And I'm glad that Baker's a great example of that too. I always say this, like there are 5 or 6 elite quarterbacks. It doesn't matter what team you put them on. It doesn't matter what situation they're going to be in. They're going to be unbelievable. But then you've got a handful of, probably 10 to 12 other guys where the system really matters and the infrastructure really matters. They have a certain skill set that if it is accentuated and they're put in the right spot, they're going to be able to be great. And I think Sam is a good example of that, and to have the adversity that he had, to go through everything he has in his career and come out the other side, has been pretty awesome to see. But I'll tell you, Baker, for me, like Baker Mayfield is much must see TV. Like if I've got 4 or 5 quarterbacks like I need to see every weekend. Baker is definitely one of them that I'm tuning into.
Why?
I mean, I love the way he plays the game. I think there's just some of these young guys that are coming in now. It almost seems like winning isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is just making sure the stat sheet looks okay. And Baker, on every single play, is trying to win a football game. Good example, this last game, he throws 3 interceptions in the first half. Doesn't stop slinging that thing. But there was a play, he's 30 yards down the field blocking for one of his guys. And it was a horrible block, but you just you see the guys on the sideline see that and they say, look, I can play for this dude. I love that. And so it's just, when you can see a competitor and a guy that really wants to win and it shows in his play, that's something I really like watching.
Last question. You and I have talked about this before. I think the listeners might find it interesting. Harvard, your alma mater, right? You went to Harvard, by the way, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I
They
did.
mention on
My
TV every once
diploma's
in a while.
back here somewhere. Yeah.
You were, I don't know what you call it for. You were one of the advisors, or you were on the committee that helped hire their new head coach, Andrew Orrick, who, yes, is a Princeton grad, which is cool for me, I guess. Just thoughts on that process for the listeners that might have no idea what it's like. I did it like maybe 14 years ago, a while ago. I'm sure it's changed now. What was that process like for you to be a part of a hiring process?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I loved it. I tried to bring as many candidates to the table as I could. The administration narrowed it down to four candidates and had a few different alumni do some interviews and provide feedback. Um, and I was really impressed with him. Andy, and so far has done a great job. We've got nothing but wonderful things that we've heard about him from players and coaches and just other people around campus. But I'll tell you the blowback that I got, woof. That I spent, I think, 2 weeks on the phone after he was hired of guys not happy. Some of it, hey, he's a Princeton guy. Some of it, transparency of the process, all these different things. But I think in the end, it showed me two great things. And one was like how much pride people have in Ivy League football, Harvard in particular. I know Princeton as well. And I played for their head coach, Bob Serace, or your head coach, Bob Serace, when I was in Cincinnati. But just how much pride and how much people care about Ivy League football is really cool. And then just people being reasonable, being able to sit down and have discussions and maybe to, disagree, but in the end to be able to share those ideas with each other and talk and say, shake hands and say, okay, like I understand it, but I don't like it, and walk away and still be friends. That's kind of what I got out of the process, but really enjoyed it.
I love both aspects. I think the world would be better off if more people could do the latter. And I think for the former, that is awesome. It's awesome that many people care, that many guys, and knowing that they're Harvard guys, they all thought they knew a better way or that there's a better way it should have been done. Probably wanted to tell you about it. Check him out on social media. He's on social media now. Why? I didn't ask you that. Why are you on social media now? When did that happen?
Uh,
When did that start?
it very recent. I think it's been a month or so, maybe a little more than a month. I held off forever. And I think part of it now just being a, media personality and even just being able to interact more with the fans. As a player, I didn't want to interact with the fans other than seeing them and saying hi and bye because I didn't want to hear their opinions on how good or lousy I was. In the media now, I think it's helpful for me, and it's helpful for me to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on in each city. And I also just love living in the comment section, just throwing a quick jab and then getting out. I've really enjoyed that part. So I still like I'm definitely more of a Twitter guy, jumping in with little comments and jumping out than I have been with Instagram so far, but I'm feeling it out.
Check him out. I don't know what his Instagram handle is. Maybe it's the same. But on Twitter, he's at Fitzmagic_14. What are you on Instagram? Do you know?
I think it's Fitzmagic 14
All
with
right.
no one.
At Fitzmagic_14 on Twitter. Yes, it's really him. I was like, when I first saw it, I thought it was like a fake account. And then Instagram at Fitzmagic14. Thanks for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Ross.
Fitz is so awesome. Smart guy. Very smart. The type of guy that's smart enough to realize that if you can get 72 months with 0% interest with up to $1,500 off, you need to seriously consider it. That's the deal right now at westshorehome.com/Ross. For my listeners, that's you guys. That's also the owner of the company. He's a listener of the show, which is awesome. I've gotten our front door done. I'm going to get my studio detached garage door done next, and probably windows. The girls shower, they absolutely love it. Can't highly recommend this company enough. And you can check out my house, the bathrooms, the door, everything. westshorehome.com/Ross. 72 months, 0% interest, up to $1,500 off. Absolutely ridiculous. I love football. I love tailgating. I love that you guys get to tailgate a lot more than I do with Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka and an official vodka partner of the NFL. It's an experience that is best enjoyed together. How about this? Smirnoff is giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience. Tickets, sideline passes, much more. Head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th. WeDoGameDays.com. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. Ends 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas Incorporated, New York, New York.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross. As you mentioned earlier in the show, a bunch of trades across the NFL. Devontae Adams, he's traded to the Jets for a conditional third-rounder. Jets are picking up the entire salary there. Amari Cooper's headed to the Bills for a third-rounder. And Cam Akers, a late-round pick swap from the Texans to the Vikings.
Second year in a row that Cam Akers gets traded to the Vikings, which I think is interesting. Obviously, they like him. They like what he brings to the table, and the teams that he's on are like, sure, you can have him, because not like they're giving him up for a whole lot. I always find that fascinating. But the two big ones are Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper. Devontae Adams, this has been long rumored since the summer, and so it's not much of a surprise. You know, I think what's interesting there, I mean, the first thing he should do when he gets there, it sounds like he's there already, Jack, he should talk to Hassan Reddick about having a quote-unquote bad hamstring. Could have saved Hassan Reddick like $10 million if he just did what Devontae Adams did the last couple weeks. Desperate times call for desperate measures. The Jets are all in. It's the last year for the GM's contract. I'm not surprised they did this at all. This is the type of move the Jets make, and we know they're all in for this year. As for the Raiders, kudos to their GM, Tom Telesco, for staying patient with all these reports. They're never going to get what they want, blah, blah, blah. It's a good deal for the Raiders. They were going to get rid of him after this year anyway. And the Browns might have as well with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper has not played very well this year at all. I mean, leads the NFL in drops. How much of that's him? How much of that's Deshaun Watson? I guess we're about to find out over the rest of this season. But the Bills, I think, needed someone outside who could win. Looking forward to talking to Greg Cosell about the Steelers quarterback situation tomorrow. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. Evidently a lot of weddings this time of year, which means a lot of anniversaries, which means a lot of you need a good anniversary gift. I can assure you there is none better than myfrontpagestory.com, backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.